try to keep it just to one question because we're going to go about 20 minutes today. So I'm going to open up.
Good luck with that, Jerry.
Fourth row right. Fourth row right. Fifth row right. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman row.
Right, we watched the film on this. You talk about offensive line progress every week, but what do you feel like you're finally seeing what you need to see from that group up front?
Step in the right direction. You saw them playing hard, and that's the expectation. You know, they're not always going to be perfect, but we got to rock off the ball and finish people. And you know, I felt like it started with that week of practice that they had last week to build some momentum going into this week. It's got to happen again, starting today on Tuesday. Is a big practice for us. So, you know, we gotta win the game up front in this game. That's, you know, no surprise to anybody, and you know they'll be a big part of it.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Brian, Coach Freeman said yesterday that he wants to be more aggressive in this game offensively than maybe he was a year ago. With the situation you guys have, still an offensive line kind of coming together, Kyle going on the road to a hostile environment for the first time, how do you manage a game like this maybe differently, or do you do anything differently given kind of those scenarios and going to a place like Notre Dame?
Well, I think you build up, you know, in these first few games to figure out where you are going into this game, and you go from there. But I think that, you know, we got some confidence going into this game. We got a rhythm, so you know, we got to have a great week of practice. But you know, it's going to come down to, you know, winning the line of scrimmage for sure. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter, and you know who's going to be there in the end. And you know, they have a really good team. You know, Marcus does a great job. They have a great staff. You know, so you know, we got to go win a top 10 game on the road, and our guys are really excited for this game. You could see it Sunday. You could see it even yesterday, guys, you know, buzzing around. And so now we got to have a great week of practice, and it's going to come down to, you know, who wants to compete more.
Over here to the right, Don Berry, WBNS.
Coach, as you look at your football team right now going into this week, what do you think you're the most comfortable with offensively that you're doing?
I think we have a good balance. I think that's important when you talk about, you know, the wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends. You know, you've seen even in 3 games, I think multiple guys, you know, produce, and that's good. You know, when you can attack from different personnel groupings, and you know, it forces defense to have to play the entire field. They can't just, you know, focus in on one guy or one thing that you're doing. So I think we have a good balance, and I think that's going to be important in this game.
Right behind him, Clay Hall, WSYX.
How big a tone setter could this be for you to get to this checkpoint 4-0, as you say, to win this game on the road? And maybe the way you kind of manipulated, you said you ratcheted up the intensity. Can you do it again 2 weeks in a row?
Oh yeah. That's what, you know, we don't have a choice. That's what we have to do. This is again top 10 you know, game on the road, and this is why, again, these are the kind of games why you come to Ohio State. You know, this is an exciting series because it's not something that happens very often. Ohio State and Notre Dame, you know, 2 of the bigger teams in the Midwest getting together for a home and home. You know, last year's atmosphere was electric. It'll be the same way on Saturday night. So our guys are really fired up for this.
Fourth row right, Cameron Teague, Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, as a play caller, when you're playing a defense that has a corner that's playing with as much confidence as it does playing with right now, how do you go about game playing with a guy like that? You know that's going to be almost everything.
I mean, you always have to know where he is. You have to be aware of that, and you have to, you know, be smart about what you're doing and how you're doing it. I think that's probably the biggest thing is when you're dealing with a great corner, you need to know where he is, and you know, not that you're going to change your game plan, but you need to know, you know, is it right, left, is it field boundary, those type of things, so that, you know, your quarterback has an idea of, you know, the matchups that he's dealing with. And the good news for us is, you know, we have multiple really good players back there. So that's the same thing on offense. You know, when you're getting to games like this, oftentimes it can come down to the matchups, and you want to have enough depth and enough playmakers on both sides of the ball that when it comes to, you know, your star, you know, your your next guy, your third guy, your fourth guy. Those are all matchups that you have that are in your favor, and that can happen in games like this.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
It's a rare trip up to South Bend. Do you think you'll be able to take a moment, even though it is such a big game, to sort of soak in where you are and enjoy it for a second?
Probably not, but that's the game. Been there a few times when I was at Boston College. There's a lot of respect for the history of the program and what they've done. Grew up watching Notre Dame, and wonderful program, great tradition, and they do a great job. But yeah, I mean these are great moments. This is the highest level of college football, and all eyes will be on this game, and that's the way we love it.
Fourth row middle, Tony Goodman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, what were you most pleased with leaving the field last week, offense or defense, knowing what you're dealing with this weekend?
Just the energy and the passion and the intensity that we played the game with. Didn't even remember exactly what the score was, but I remember how some guys played in that game, and just the overall intensity was there, and the challenge was there. So that's got to lead into this week, and that was what we tried to get done, and so now it's got to mean something here on Tuesday, and we got to take the next step. Got to continue to ratchet it up, because this is a bigger challenge.
Front row middle, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, I want to ask about James Laurinaitis. Just what impact has he had on the defense overall, and especially this week? How much can he help with him having been there last year?
Yeah, I mean, not as much as you'd like to think, but he's done an unbelievable job since he's been here. He's helped out a ton. Being a graduate assistant, he's an accountable coach. Knows what it's like to walk in the shoes of an Ohio State football player, and he's played in the NFL, and he's got great experience that he can share with our guys, and our linebackers really enjoy that. So he's been a great addition to the staff.
Second row right, Bill Landis, the podcast, Rivals.
Right. How would you evaluate, I guess, Kyle's decision-making and processing? I was assuming you're giving him more and more each week. How has he kind of handled, I guess, putting more on his plate every week?
Yeah, I think he's growing each week. I think you saw that. And, not that everything's perfect. Nothing is. And I think this week will be a big challenge to see where we're at. But it's been a gradual build-up for our whole team and, for him to this point. And so now it's time to go play and see what we got. But we got to do a great job. Again, I keep saying it, these next couple of days to really prepare. I think I've told you before, I get more worked up for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday than I do for the game. We got to really be on point today and have a great practice.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You brought up the CJ Oregon game a couple of times when we talked to you about the 54 pounds is just putting way too much on CJ's plate, and whether it's how you game plan, how you call plays, whether it's production of other position groups, the defense. Are you more confident that that won't be the case on Saturday with having to put too much on Kyle's plate this early on in his career as a starter? And what does that look like in making sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle's, he has to go play the game, and we have to do whatever we can to win the game. That's the bottom line. Whatever that looks like, we're always looking for balance. We want balance. There's certain times where, like last year, we ran the ball a ton down the stretch, and we're good with making 5 or 6 yards a carry. But then there's also times where you got to throw it more because of what they're doing and how the game's playing out. So we have to be able to pivot either way, whatever it takes to win the game.
Right behind him, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, you talked about, after the Georgia game last year, being more expressive, emotional on the sideline in certain big games like this. So on Saturday, how do you plan to strike that balance between showing that emotion, providing that intensity to the team, and also staying poised when you need to and being calm?
Yeah, well, I think it's just the overall, team approach. Even last week, you could see guys were, into the game. The sideline was passionate. Guys were. Coach Mick even got a penalty for walking out in the field. But hey, sometimes things got to go down. You know what I mean? That's our mentality as a team. It isn't just the leaders. It isn't just the coaches. It's everybody. And that's the way we're going to be this week.
Front row right, Tim May. On 3, the Tim May Show.
Thank you very much. So hope the refereeing crew from that DeSales Reedy game doesn't show up, right? That's a little joke there. Kind of a two-pronged question, but it dovetails. The feeling you talked about after that game at Georgia, against Georgia, in Indianapolis about just feeling, hey, just go out and let it all hang out kind of approach. Do you have that confidence in Kyle that you can take that into this game? And then defensively also, have you seen enough to prove to yourself that this defense hasn't taken the strides you wanted?
Yeah, and I think that this is a group that has played in the big stage. They have. I mean, the majority of these guys have done that, and they've seen it. Even though Kyle really hasn't, been on that stage, he's seen it. He's been around it. He knows what it looks like, and a lot of the guys coming back from last year's team they've been there before. So that's good going into it. And then I think you saw last week what we're capable of, and so yeah, I mean it's all there, and now it's just time to go do it.
Ryan, they have this year, Notre Dame, a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, obviously, in Sam Hartman. What stands out to you about this offense that they have this year versus where they were a year ago?
Yeah, very different. Different coach, different quarterback. You can tell, Hartman is a veteran. He's been around. He's played a lot of football, accurate, very intelligent. A lot of good attributes for a quarterback. He's very good. Won a lot of games at Wake Forest, and obviously he's 4-0 now. Efficient, and I think they're doing a really good job with him. They're running the ball. They're running the ball out of multiple personnel groupings and efficient. I think just a different style of quarterback than when they had Buckner last year. That was more of a quarterback run, spread run game. This is a little bit more pro style.
Hartman seems willing to certainly take shots downfield. And get 2 on Saturday, we're over like 70 yards, and he's taking deep shots throughout the year. What stands out about the way he can do that, and what's the particular challenge with that?
Well, I think anytime you deal with a pro style run game, you're dealing with run and play action, and I think they want to establish the run. It's clear, you can tell that. I think Estime's running really well. He's running hard, and then once that happens, it opens up things down the field, and so that kind of goes hand in hand, and they're doing a good job of that. They have a good plan and put it in place, and so that's a good challenge for our defense. We had a real long conversation about it all today, and we got to be able to rise to the challenge, understand exactly what you're talking about, because we've got to be aggressive, but we also have to make sure that we're running to the ball and giving great effort and avoiding big plays, all those types of things.
Third row, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, what's the biggest difference you've seen in Tyleek Williams this year that's allowed him to make a more consistent impact?
Well, it was great to see him play 50 plays in this game. I thought there was actually times where he got better as the game went on. He's got power. He's got strength at the point of attack. He's very athletic, and he missed a little bit of time with a little bit of a tweaked injury at the beginning of preseason. And I think now he's finally got his feet back underneath him. I think he's doing a better job with his hands. He's powerful. He's athletic. And so now it's time for him to go play his best football in this game, along with the rest of the defensive line. It's a big challenge. They do have a good offensive line that's well documented. So. Again, our guys have to have a great week of preparation.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Ryan, you talked about just the special matchup as far as these programs in the history. It's also a special matchup because of so many crossover. I mean, Laurinaitis, they've already asked about him. There's a guy in the back of the room over there. Who knows? Devontae's there. Lorenzo's now here. How neat is that there's these programs so much crossover?
Yeah, I think maybe just because of the location of where we are and just now that Marcus is there and being a former Buckeye, there's guys from Ohio in the program and vice versa. So we're not in the same conference, but now that we're playing against each other, I guess you recognize those things. But a lot of respect for that program, what they do. They do things the right way, and a lot of good coaches there and good players.
Did Mick have dawn patrol or anything for that penalty?
Nobody did run like we run on Sundays. You have to run for a penalty. He did do his penance for that. Yeah.
Okay. When you prepare, break down film, game plan for Notre Dame, how much in your mind, how much stock percentage attention would you put on the way they played you last year versus the 4 games that you have to look at now?
You take everything into consideration. You watch everything, and you try to do the best you can to project out what you're going to see. Some of it is based on the personnel they have this year. Some of it is based on schematics, things that they've seen this year, things that we have adapted on both sides of the ball. So, different on defense because, the defensive staff is pretty much intact. On offense, different coordinator, different quarterback. So, but they're a very veteran defense. they have a bunch of seniors on that team, a lot of guys who have played a lot of football, so they know what they're trying to get done, and they force you to move the ball down the field. They give you a lot of big plays, and they're very well coached.
Second row left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
You were talking before about just the progression that you were seeing from Kyle and the rest of the offense in practice and how that changed your approach on Saturday a little bit. Does tempo fall into that too? Or are you starting to see things during the week in that regard that allow you to, I guess, be the offense you want to be more on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it plays a big part of the rhythm of the game. There's a give and take to all of this, but when our team is playing with tempo, they find themselves in a rhythm. They find some comfort in that, and so it's a tool that we use. Some games more than others, but you could see on Saturday, how our team got in a rhythm using some tempo. But there was also the big plays, the first play of the drives that were explosives that weren't tempo, that I thought were well executed. But that'll all play into consideration. But it's got to come down to execution.
There wasn't necessarily a reaction on your part to what you talked about before, trying to create more plays. It was just.
Well, I think in last week's game, we knew they were going to throw it a lot and go tempo, so it was less of a concern. Where the last 2 weeks, it was like, how fast can we run plays, because the game was going to be over in less than 3 hours. Last week's game was going to be completely different, so we knew that. This is a matchup game, totally different. You just do everything you can to win the game.
Front row, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I know you guys didn't look at it this way because you can't, but a lot of people thought the first 3 games were basically a tune-up for this one. You entered the game with a lot of questions on your team. Compared to how you felt heading into the Indiana game, how good do you feel about where you are ready for this challenge?
Yeah, I'm glad that we went through those 3 games to get to this point, with, some of the new faces that we had, and we did work out some of the issues, and so excited to get on the field and go play this one now. I think that we have a pretty good idea who our team is and where we're at, and so now it's time to go play. But yeah, to answer your question, we are in a much different place than we were week 1.
And last year you did have an experienced quarterback, an experienced offensive line. You still only scored 21 points against Notre Dame. What was it that they did or you didn't do, and how much has that shaped your preparation for this game?
I think in matchup games, like, it really doesn't matter the score as long as you win. I think I get it when you're playing, Western Kentucky, it's a little bit of an eye test there and all that. But in that game, I thought we controlled the ball, we ran the ball, and the time of possession was really important there, and we won the game. I think that's in that game. That was the right thing to do. Now. You just never know what's going to come in this game, how it's going to shake out, what the back and forth is going to be, and the ultimate goal is to win the game. That's it, and that's what we'll do in this one. But yeah, I think looking back on that game, there was some things we did well, some things that we could have really done much better. But it was the first game of the year, and weren't clean on some things, but there were some things that we did do well.
Ryan, last year Tyler Buckner's making his first start. CJ's back as a year 2 starter. Now Sam Hartman's been around forever. This is still pretty new for Kyle. In general, how much do you think quarterback experience matters in equal talent games on a big time stage like this? Is it a factor?
Yeah, I think it's a factor. Yeah, how much you want. I think Kyle's been around. He hasn't played a whole bunch of football, but he has been around. He's seen it, so he's older and more mature than maybe a freshman who's coming in the same situation. But no, I think experience does play a part of it. It's not the number one thing overall. There's a lot of other things that come with it, but I do think it's significant.
And you have to play the games whenever you play them. Last year it's week 1.
Right.
Now you've played 3. They've played 4. It feels like you just feel like more about your team,
right.
Maybe more about the opponent when a big time game like this is a little bit later in the schedule.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. They've played 4, we've played 3, so it is a different approach than it would be for game 1. Yeah.
Fourth row, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Right, I know you said this game's decided at the line of scrimmage, but that Notre Dame back end is playing among the best in the country right now. What stands out about that group to you?
Again, some guys who played a bunch of football. I think both corners are playing well. The safeties are playing well. I think the linebackers are excellent. They've seen a lot of football, played a lot of football. They're good players. There's some NFL players on that defense. They're well coached. Again, they don't give you a lot of freebies, not a lot of missed assignments. They tackle well. They're physical. So it's exactly what we expected. So, we got to go play well.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
I know you named Kyle the starter to kind of gain confidence on the field, but off the field, I know it's just been a week. Have you seen the locker room? Have you seen Kyle change and kind of grow now that he is the guy?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think you've seen a little bit of a different approach. He had his best week of practice last week. Whether that was a coincidence or not, I'm not sure. But we'll see going into this week. But I do. I thought he graded out really well. On Saturday, and hopefully he's going to play his best football here this week. But I think that there was a little pep in his step for sure.
Right next door, Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Building off of Andy's question, with Benjamin Morrison for Notre Dame, what stands out to you when you watch him? And are you guys game planning as if he's going to follow Marv around on either side of the field?
No. We're going to just do what we do. But at the same time, he's a very good corner, good cover skills, competitive, good change of direction, runs well. He's very talented.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Treviot's looked really sharp this season. I don't think that's a secret. Is he starting to maybe kind of elevate himself to be that guy you can't take off the field? And I guess what is the benefit of having that guy going into a game like this that you can ride?
Yeah, well, when we need him to play great, his approach has been excellent. His competitiveness every day has been great. I think he's running hard. He's a weapon in a lot of areas, and yeah, that can be a difference maker for us. I thought he ran hard last year's game. He and Mayan both. So again, it's like anybody else. They got to play their best football, but you're seeing, a guy run downhill and make big plays, and he's certainly a threat once he gets in the open field.
That is, is Mayan the third guy? Is Chip taking that second spot really? I know you're
No, we haven't really put any kind of depth on that part of it. We'll still kind of roll the guys, but all are going to play.
We're going to thank you, Coach. We're going to wrap it up with a couple of quickies from Tim May on 3.
Yeah. Do you like that combination you saw? You're seeing now though with Travion and Trainum. In Trainum, has he surprised you a little bit the way he's stepped up? Came back to be a linebacker. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know he hasn't surprised me because of his work ethic in the off season. He's got real speed. He's got power. He's got 1-2. He's got a really good leader, great attitude, tough. And so this was kind of what I thought we would see.
With Hartman, in a nutshell, you can see he's in his 6th year, right? How does it show up?
Just poise, decision making, overall command of the game, and then execution.